Okay, let's have some fun here. Not that all scenes aren't fun, but I have a really fun time on these metallic foil types of cardstocks. This one happens to be the holographic rainbow, which, I don't know, I'm having a really hard time kind of finding a source for this paper. I don't know if it stopped being made and there's still a lot of residual inventory out there, or a little bit of it, but I don't know. This is the foil cardstock, and you can do it, what I'm going to do on this one, on something like this, you can choose an iridescent star dream paper, choose anything that you want. Go with something kind of sparkly, maybe, although, if you want to, you can do it on a white piece of cardstock as well. The media is going to change a little bit depending on what paper you use. If you're just going with a plain cardstock, then you can use practically any types of inks that you want. I'm going to be working it on this foil, so I'm going to have to use something like a Brilliance right here. I thought I'd play around with the StazOn a little bit more. This one is pretty hard to manipulate, though, because it dries so fast. It's the fastest drying ink I've ever used. And that's what it's been designed for. The Brilliance inks have been designed to be used on things like glossy cardstock and stuff like that that's slightly porous. This one's almost not porous at all. But this type of ink will dry on this type of foil card, but you have to give it some time. Don't expect it to dry in a couple days if you're just letting it air dry, okay? I don't find that that's a hard thing to do, though. Someone was mentioning, oh, I don't have the patience to let it dry. Well, I don't, I just let it sit on my shelf, and I don't sit around waiting for it to dry. I just let it dry on its own. So, that being said, I'm going to do a quick scene right here. And the foil cards, believe it or not, are very quick scenes to do for the most part because they don't allow you to do a lot of different coloring on there, okay? They don't allow you to build up a lot of different imagery and layer them on top of one another. You just pretty much have to go with, one, maybe two layers of imagery because of that wet ink. If you try to stamp more things over the top of previously stamped images on there, they almost wipe off, so you can't use too much, okay? But that being said, any type of reflective type of surfaces like this, the iridescent ones, the star dreams, the foils, they all look pretty impressive because they're reflecting back so much light that's bouncing off of them when you observe them. Okay, so the cloud with lightning large. I want to have a little bit of variation in here. You don't have to do this part of it, but I'm going to stamp in some white in this area right here, okay? Well, it's not stamping in the white, I'm just applying it with a cotton ball here, okay? It doesn't have to be smooth or anything, and you don't even have to be kind of on target, so to speak. I'm just getting some ink laid down here so that when I stamp this image out, those lightning bolts are going to be lighter or white for the most part, okay? I just want a little bit of variation from the surrounding area in here, okay? And this is what it looks like right here. I don't know if you can even see it. It's kind of hard to show. But you see that white in there? It's not giving me a big, very opaque slathering here. Like I said, it's kind of, as soon as it hits this, it's practically dry, okay? It's not even coming off on my finger. But that's what StazOn's about. It's not about kind of adding ink like this either. That's not what it was designed to do. It was kind of designed to be, to use images, stamp it out, and you got a dry image on, glass or whatever you're using it on. Okay, so that was in the lightning area. I'm going to put some light on the rocks here on my lakeside cove, okay? So, if I can just kind of estimate where these ones are going to go. This one's a little bit less important because we just have some lightning bolts here. We got a lot of black around it. I can go kind of wherever with that. But with this lakeside cove, you kind of want to apply this white ink roughly in that area right there. It doesn't have to be perfect though. Okay, so I'm just going to lay some ink across like this. I'm kind of tapping it because that's really the only way that it's going to apply here. We're kind of going for this little bit of a kind of rule of thirds type of thing here, kind of breaking the scene up into threes like that, okay? The horizon usually counts for your kind of third aspect of it, not the top of this, but right in here, usually, because that's kind of eye level, so to speak. It's just a little technical thing right there. Okay, so maybe I'll put a little bit of this reflective type of light down in here in the water. There's not going to be a lot of water here. We're going to be focusing mostly on the sky portion. This would also look very interesting if you went and rolled the thirds and stamped this high, and then had the reflection, you know, with your lightning in there. That would be pretty cool too. A lot of people, like in photography, like doing reflections. They like going out after a rainy day and shooting puddles and stuff like that because of those reflective qualities in there. It's really fun to do, to have a little bit of, say, sky on the ground. Okay, so this is what this looks like. It's not perfect by any means. You can see it's just this little kind of feeble, you know, application of ink right there. I could do this in the Brilliance white, and that would really spread, and I would get a thicker slathering of it. But sometimes I find when I use like a foil like this ink is going to be sitting on here still very wet. Okay, and this is like completely dry here. Now it's coming off in a little bit of a powder. Well, I wouldn't say it's dry, but it's really pasty. It's stuck on there, okay? But something like this is going to be super juicy and wet, and I would just be able to wipe it clean off if I did the Brilliance. So that being said, sometimes when you stamp over the top of, you know, a thick application of wet ink on there, and I go over it with like something like black, that black just doesn't transfer on here because it's going wet, juicy ink into wet, juicy ink, and sometimes I pull this off and all that black is still on there. So that's why I've opted to go with the StazOn pigment. This is the second time I've ever used this, you know, and I think I kind of have the gist of it down, not in terms of perfection, but with how it works. In terms of it being able to be stamped on, at least, in this, you know, current state of it, you know, which is soon after application, okay? All right, so that being said, let's go ahead and stamp our imagery out now, okay? Now, this is the point when, if you're going to add more of this, you better do it right now, because after you stamp your imagery on here, you're not going to be able to add more white, you know, over the top of this black right here. This black's going to be super juicy, and it just won't allow for it. Okay, now one of the things I didn't check for is if I inked up, or my Brilliance black was inked up enough here. This ink is really super thick, so I find that when I'm using it, I practically have to ink up this pad every time, which is kind of a drag. I'm just not used to having to do that. Maybe there's enough ink on there. Okay, I'm kind of pressing this into it a little bit harder, so maybe that'll help. One of the things with the Lakeside Cove, what I do here, well, I probably don't need to do it, but a lot of times I wipe off this interior section right here, just so that it transitions off a little bit from wet to dry and dark to light. But I think this is going to be going off the page. Well, maybe not. I guess I put that little white area up there high enough to where I can get the bottom of this in here. So, like I said, I kind of wiped off the bottom right here, so it just kind of fades out like that. And a lot of times I don't even ink up this center section here, especially if I have a light source that's going to be in here, and I don't want that to be those dark tones in there. Okay? All right, so just roughly, this is about midway up. If you're using an unmounted stamp, just, I don't know, you can put your finger kind of on that rocky area right there, and I can see that right there. That my little white line is right there. You probably can't see it on the camera. And we'll go like this. And every time I do this on the foil, I'm just kind of hoping that that ink transfers over to the foil. First of all, just trying to transfer it onto this foil cardstock. Sometimes is a little bit, I don't know. It's just not certain because this is so non-porous. It just doesn't transfer that easily. So what I do is I go with a firm, you know, impression, standard imprint, whatever, processes, okay? Good technique. You don't want to rock your stamp or anything like that, okay? But let's hope that transferred over there, okay? Not too bad. See, that right there, I I put a little white ink in there. That's not too bad. I wish it was darker, but hey, you know, if I get anything on this foil that's halfway decent, I'm pretty happy with it. Okay, let's go for another impression over here just to fill in that area to the sides. Remember, this is not StazOn ink, so that black ink is really wet on there still. Okay. I don't know why that impression got darker. Maybe because I'm using a smaller portion of it, I'm using more pressure. I don't know. And I'll take this one. I'm just overlapping that first impression there. All of my designs have, I've created transitions on all of them. For many years of designing stamps, even though this one's a very early one, I had been designing stamps for years before that, kind of learning how to create my transitions so that you can just overlap your imagery and you don't have to worry about kind of this aspect where you can tell where one image ends and the other one begins, okay? The seamless aspect of it. Okay, let's go with the cloud with lightning now. I probably should have re-inked, okay? This, although that looks like there's a lot of ink on there. Maybe there's not, maybe I need more. Maybe I need to kind of have it kind of built up on the surface right here. Okay, sky imagery. One of the things I recommend, and I mentioned it on how to stamp sky imagery, that video, is just wiping off your edges like this, okay? So that it transitions from wet to dry on the sides, right? And a drier perimeter won't leave you with such a harsh rectangle shape, right? And then if it doesn't have that as hard of a shape, it'll be easier to blend in with your surrounding area. Okay, so let's go right in here. I'm overlapping my trees down below a little bit. And let's take a look at this and see what it looks like over the top of that. StazOn pigment. Let me move this white out of the way from the Brilliance. Okay, that looks pretty fun right there. But see how that lightning is not reflective, it's not colored. So it just has that perimeter. See how it's kind of, just white like that. I find that kind of interesting to block out certain parts of this type of foil. I mentioned it on a posting on Facebook that I'm trying to develop my theories about usage of this type of medium. And I think what I'm trying to do in some ways in terms of concept is I'm trying to mute the inherent kind of exciting nature of this paper, where it's a little bit too exciting and distracts from the overall kind of presentation. Like, see right there? I mean, you can't see that imagery at all, right? It's just too busy out here, where we want all that color and stuff like that, but we also want to bring attention into the imagery in here and to just kind of mellow things out a little bit more and focus that type of hard energy into the scene and contain it. Otherwise it looks like this, Okay, so that is easy to do. And everyone says, oh gosh, you make it look so easy, but I know it's not. Well, I don't know what can get easier than this. You're just taking a cotton ball. This is a used cotton ball at that I've been using. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, and not even carefully, I'm going to block in a lot of this ink all around the edge. I tell you what, I'm going to make my life easier. I happen to have my cloud stamp right here. This is the Cloud Cumulus stamp, okay? And standard wiping off of the edge right here, and let's fill in my perimeter around here. Now, if I was doing a smaller card, 4¼ by 5½ that would be a lot faster, but this is a 5 by 7. I'm almost never working on that. I never cut my pieces of paper that size. I'm usually doing half size or quarter page. Sometimes what do I call it, slimline? I just call it a half page long or something like that. But I guess the term is slimline. I like that term, though. And those are my standard sizes, usually not 5 by 7, but no matter. Okay, now what I'm doing with this cloud is I'm just circling around my lightning, and this is giving it some additional texture and lighting direction like that. Okay. Okay, remember everything's really wet here. I almost forget to wipe this off here. If I do, that's fine too if you don't wipe it off, but it just has a higher chance of leaving kind of these real hard edges, okay? If it's really wet, it's going to be darker. If you wipe it off like that, it's going to stamp out lighter or not at all, right? So it's just an easy technique right there. So the easiest techniques are the things that makes life, in terms of stamping a scene like this, much, much easier for yourself. That took me, a couple seconds. And I go like that, and I don't have this hard edge here to deal with, right? Listen right here, I didn't wipe it off, so I have a little bit of a harder edge right there. I don't even know if you can see it. I can see it right here, in person, but... Okay, so that is that. I think I should have inked up this Brilliance pad here before I did this, but let's just go with it. I think things would have gotten a little bit darker. I could ink it up right now, but let's just go with this ink right here. Okay, so there's my cotton ball again. And filling in, look how much darker I can get right there. Now here's the thing right here. Don't just go like this, okay? We're not going like this like on a, I don't know, like a Lazy Susan or something like that, okay? Like spinning it and just going around. What I'm doing is, you notice I'm working one corner right here, and I'm working my transition going from darker over here, okay, and I'm going lighter like this. So I see how I keep working it in like this. I have a really soft touch, which it's not that soft, but I'm just not going like... Okay, now some people tell me they have such a hard hand or whatever, or, they can't help it. Well, you can go like this, I think, right? And that's all you need to do. Just imagine that you're kind of, I don't know, you're doing something a little bit more delicate or something like that. I'm sure everyone can do that. Now, if this is super juicy and wet, it might look like you're kind of more heavy-handed, because when you go like this and ink it up, it's going to be slathered with ink. If that's the case, blot it off a few times, takes you half second, and then take it onto your card, okay? But what I do is I don't even worry about that, okay? I'm getting a kind of thick slathering that doesn't look so great here, okay? Especially where my finger is right here, I'm finding, I'm kind of having to adjust my touch here, but see this right here where I get a kind of a thicker, not so great application? Well, I just stay there, though, and I blend it in, okay? Just keep with it and keep blending it in. I'm still working this top corner right here. I'm not down here yet, okay? So just keep working it like this, and it'll come around, trust me. And that way you get nice transitions of tone like that, okay? But see, I just kept with it. But look at this. I'm not covering this entire page, so that's like, I don't know, 1/4, 25% of, the applications that I'm going to be doing. It's taking care of that one corner. I only have 4 corners to do, okay? Now, we have some sides here, too, or whatever, but this is not a long, kind of laborious process or anything like that. But what you do is you just take one corner at a time, or one area at a time. Don't try to get the whole thing instantly. It's not coming into focus like this, okay? You're just doing one little edge at a time, okay? But, this is a pretty full coverage right here, and that didn't take long at all. There's fine-tuning that I do, like when I'm touching this, I'm I'm removing ink with my finger and stuff like that. And I keep having to kind of go back and undo some things, where I, got my fingerprint and removed ink or whatever. But for the most part, getting the kind of the larger areas taken care of, it's pretty fast. Okay, so working this corner right here. If I want some of these clouds to be reflecting some of that light, I don't go into them. I like to mute some of that holographic rainbow paper again, so what I do is I get a light application of this black ink, okay, and I cover up some of the paper, but I have some of it showing through though, so some of it's full strength, but some of it is covered, so it's muted a little bit, it's toned down, okay. Alright, so getting right here, I've almost done with this whole section right here. Okay, and see, I'm just kind of working my way down like this. Kind of get in a nice ergonomic position. This isn't taking a lot of impact on my wrist or anything like that. With this ink right here, I do end up using it quite a bit, so I'm starting to feel it in my shoulder when I'm extended, like I'm underneath the camera right here, so keep in a nice ergonomic position when you're doing this type of thing like this, and try to remember to keep things like your shoulder nice and loose, and to get into the most ergonomic position where you're not kind of straining any area. You don't want straining your wrist or elbow. You want to keep your hands in a nice ergonomic position. All right, now see where I'm kind of just working my way down. Oops, I got a little thicker right there. Every time I kind of dab this into the ink, I have to be mindful that I'm coming into this with a thicker, application, a stronger application. So every time you re-ink, you might kind of use a lighter touch like this until some of it comes off, or a lot of it comes off. And when a lot of it comes off is when I start utilizing a much drier application of it, going towards my light source, which is the lightning in this case. So see what I mean? It's wetter out here and drier in there. Go like this. You're going wet, like this. That's looking better and better right there. I need to add that, like that kind of thickness over there. But as I tap this out more and more, it gets drier and drier. So that when I do that, I come into my scene farther. I know that it's on here. When you first start doing this, when you're tapping around like this, it barely shows. Okay? So sometimes that's when people go like this, and they go like this, and they think, oh my god, it's so hard to blend. But see, what I'm doing, that's barely visible right there. Okay? See this right here? I'm doing that. It's you can't see it like that, but trust me, it's there. So see, for me, I know it's there, but sometimes people get kind of frustrated in terms of the technique, and they think it's hard because they don't, with a couple tappings, they don't believe anything's there. So they press harder, or they ink up more often instead of using that drier touch. Imagine yourself, imagine you're applying powder to this thing, like black powder or something like that. And that's kind of the thought process you should have in terms of, kind of the amount of value or color you're transferring over with each tap. Okay. If you're expecting that, I think you'll if you haven't done this type of thing before, you'll have kind of a better idea of what to expect, so that when you do, tap some in there like that, and you might be tapping for a little while, it comes about, okay? So that's what people are talking about a lot of times when they think, oh my gosh, it's so hard to do. Well, I don't know, I think this is pretty easy. And it's not like I have been doing this foil for a long time. This is like a couple months right here. And I don't know, maybe it's, I don't know, 5th, insane on this foil. I'm going to run out of this foil holographic before too long. It is really... The end results are just so fun and dynamic. There's other foils that have these kind of, I don't know, like jolts of, like bolts of lightning coming through. Maybe they would be perfect for this one, you know. And there's foil that looks like kind of glitter or something like that. It's kind of interesting. This foil to me is called Rainbow. To me it looks like an oil slick or something like that, you know, when you see kind of that oil on water and it's kind of creating that, you know, that rainbow type of look to it. Okay, so filling in. The thing for me that I have to get a little bit more kind of accustomed to is covering up more of this paper, maybe than I have, you know, in the initial tests. Although I like the initial tests too, but it's really loud, like I said. So covering up more is not, you know, like in these clouds right here. I mean, it wouldn't be bad even if I went all the way to that lightning bolt. I'm not going to do that, you know, because I want to have a little bit more of this showing, but I don't think it would look bad. And it's something that I have to kind of be a little bit more open to, maybe, than I would have been under normal circumstances, you know, any other type of paper. I don't want to cover it up this much, but this is some really dynamic paper, and this is a lot of, like, black ink that I've laid down here, okay? But look at that. I mean, that still shows through, like, right here. You can even see it. And that's how much black I've laid down here. It's quite a bit, you know, like that. See, that's like that, but, you know, under the right light, that... It's just such powerful, powerful paper. Powerful, I don't know, whatever, surface. Okay, so let's get some of this tone down in my water here. Ooh, that's a big slathering right there. Let's blend it in. Okay, see that right there? I have to be mindful of my lightning reflection in the water. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll, you know, be careful not to cover up those reflection bolts so that they become kind of a secondary light source, you know, of the scene. Let's get some tone on these rocks as well. Don't tone them out with black, but tone them out with a little bit of shades of gray, maybe, like this. Okay. Seeing that? How I kind of tone that in right there. Right? I think my black pad here is starting to get a little bit dry. These Brilliance pads weren't designed to be used like this, you know, and left open like this. You know, they're fast drying inks, so, you know, you're supposed to kind of open them up and ink up your stamp and get an impression out of it. But I use it for this type of toning right here, so that things were kind of remaining open longer. I don't know, maybe that's why I need to re-ink it more often. But I find that, you know, it works pretty good for the foils in terms of toning and, I don't know, just this process right here. I don't know of any other inks that I can do that with. It's one of those types of situations where, you know, there's certain types of inks that are, I don't know, perfectly paired, kind of like in nature or whatever, you know, it's adaptation or something like that. This ink out there in the crafting world it's paired very well with foil, you know, cardstocks. All right, let's try to get a little bit blacker here on the edges right here and get a little bit more ink down so that we can kind of contain that foil look a little bit more, in those areas at least. Okay. Okay. Sometimes it's even hard for me to see because I have this reflecting off of here, so I can't really tell what I'm doing sometimes. There's just so much light reflecting off of it. But, that being said, this is not one of those things where everything has to be super particular, okay? There's a lot of leeway. Okay. It's not like I'm going to go like, oh my god, I messed it up, or something like that. Or even tapping it like this for a while. It's not going to mess it up. You know, even if it's in an area that you don't really like. You know, you come back to the paper, and it's, you know, you're not going to notice like some little tiny thing around here, even if it's fairly significant. Like I said, this paper is really loud. Any of the foils are. And the iridescents are, you know, they have volume, but in a different way. They have visual volume in terms of you know, that reflective type of quality, but it's more of like this, I don't know, kind of a loud whisper. There's such a thing. This paper shouts for sure. The foils in general, I would say, even the gold and silver ones, they're pretty loud visually. You know, that silver one's practically a mirror, you know, that we're using. Okay, so let's go in here. I'm just toning in my clouds. This is much more of a covering of the clouds than what I really ever do, but like I said, I just want to block off a little bit more in here. Okay, I'm going to add, I'm working too hard here. Let's see, where's my Brilliance black refill? Here we go. I'm going to have to be really careful when using this ink here. Okay, now, because it's going to give me a big slathering of it. Where's that? Oh, I can't find my little, this plastic card that I blend this out with. I'll just do it with a piece of paper here. Just to spread it around a little bit more, okay? Alright, let's see if I can't apply this well. I'll go really perimeter oriented right here, okay? Boy, that's a really thick slathering of it right there. Okay. So I just kind of, you know, I stayed in that area on the side. Yeah, this is really super juicy. It's good for the darkest of areas. I wouldn't bring it into this, you know, very much. Well, I don't know. A few little applications and it's not too bad. Maybe it's drying on this cotton ball really fast. You know, it does dry, you know. It's like the StazOn of pigment inks. It's supposed to dry pretty fast. On the foil, though, it does not dry very fast. That's why I keep having to kind of go over my fingerprints, you know, where I'm holding the card. Although this lightning impression stamp seems pretty dry right now. I don't know. Okay, this is just kind of doing that vignette thing. Okay. You know, it's containing that imagery. When I hold it up like this, though, boy, it's so loud still. Maybe I want to go in a little bit further. Maybe not with, you know, super black ink, you know, and solid, but maybe just more of this grayscale. Let's tone it down a little bit more. Putting a little bit of darkness behind my trees. Not too much, though, because I want to see the silhouette of the trees standing out pretty well. Okay. Coming in here, around my rocks. Let's get a little bit of tone on some of these rocks in here, in the image. Okay. Don't be afraid to flip your card around in whatever direction is going to be the most conducive for the most comfortable application of media. Whenever you're doing that, remember to, remember your ergonomics. The more comfortable you are, I believe, the more graceful the application of, whatever you're doing. Okay, now let's get to a point here where I'm not having to cover up my fingerprints here. I'll try not to hold, the card as much. Alright, this is a pretty simple composition right here. We're talking 2 stamps. One of them used twice in terms of the reflection. Oh, no, I forgot about the cloud. 3 stamps. One of the stamps used quite a lot in the cloud cumulus. And Lakeside Cove. Yeah, I'm not happy where I'm at yet. It's still so loud. Let's get some tone in here. Okay. Okay, going into my rocks a little bit more. Let's take a look and see what we have here. Whew, boy, that is crazy. I like it in different ways. I like it. I like it at certain angles a little bit more than others. Like that. I don't know, you can get every little color in every different way. Okay, now let's watch here, where I've blocked out, okay? See that lightning and the rocks? See how they don't have so much of that light on top of it? That's where we laid down the white underneath them, okay? So it's a little bit more muted. Maybe I could have put more white all the way around that. I don't know, it was kind of hard with the StazOn because it was drying so fast, but yeah, and now you do have a lot of that color showing through the white, though. In the rocks, I didn't lay down quite as much white. I don't know, it's pain in the, work with it drying so fast, but the lightning got it pretty good. I guess you see a little bit of it, that color showing through. The white is probably a little bit more translucent than it is opaque, okay? But let's see if we can add a few little white highlights, which we're afforded the ability to do because we made the lightning white. If you don't have any white in there at all, then there really wouldn't be white highlights, right? It has to be white light kind of, reflecting off things. So that's where this pen comes in. It's kind of fun having a little bit of added texture or just something different in here, okay? So I use this just like I would when I use dye-based inks and I'm coloring everything up or whatnot. This is still a fun little addition to do. Let me try something here too. Maybe I can get some of those lightning bolts a little bit whiter. Yeah, okay. So I'll just come in here. I'll just color some of it in like that. I don't know if I would do like all of them. Maybe just do kind of the main bolt there. Actually, that looks pretty good. Everyone always asks about this pen. This is the Miaosun 0.7 millimeter acrylic paint pen. It's always in the description below as far as the things that I use in these scenes. Okay, so there's my white. Maybe I didn't need to do the white, with the versifying. I don't know. Some of the versifying white is in this whole area too, so it's not just on the bolts. So anyway, so we have that lighting like that. Now let's give. Oh, almost forgot about the reflections. Let's hit a couple of these reflections too. All right, so it's kind of coming up from below like that. So they kind of match in terms of their reflective quality. Okay, now, where do you add this? Well, I add it on the tops of my rocks, okay? Boy, it's hard to see sometimes with that light kind of glaring into my face off the paper. Let's do this. I just add a few little dots on the tops of these rocks. Sometimes I'll do a little bit of a line. I'll just stick with the dots probably here. Okay. Reflections in the water, maybe. This horizontal striations or whatever. All right, so let's take a look in here. Let's see if I can show. Yeah, you see those highlights in there? You can use a little bit more on that big rock, I think. Like that. Okay. Those little highlights in the water, nothing crazy. A lot of on those rocks right there. Let's take a look at it from, arm viewing distance right here. Pretty fun to do. I'm trying to think. I don't think I can add anything else to it. That's the thing. I kind of feel like adding some kind of taller trees here in the foreground. I don't think I can do it because this is just too wet. And if I stamp an image down there, even with a lot of the Brilliance ink on it, and I lift it off, I think it's going to be removing ink right there. So it's going to be, instead of being a black tree, it's going to be like a white one or something like that. So we'll just leave it like that. Oh, let's see. Let's add a few little highlights on the sides of some of these clouds, maybe. I put the highlights on the sides of the clouds facing the light, so the billows on the left of the scene are right side, have right side highlights. The clouds on the left side of the lightning, or the right side, are going to be left side illuminated, okay? Where are the clouds going to be illuminated above the lightning? Well, they can kind of be bottom lit, okay? So you put a few little highlights like that. A scene like this might benefit from a little bit of splatter painting too. I don't know. Something kind of just, it seems like it's missing something to me. How about you? Something a little bit more dynamic, huh? Let's try it. After all, I washed off my splatter painting Oral-B. This is the Oral-B splatter painting brush. I'm just joking. It's just an old toothbrush. Okay. Oh, this one's my dry one. I have 2 jars of my opaque bleed-proof white right here. This one's the one I've been using. These do get really dried out because they dry up really fast. So even if you don't use it for like a week, you don't want to have the whole bottle just completely liquefied. You just want to get a little bit of water on the top of your ink in there. Okay, you don't need to, like I said, it doesn't need to be the whole thing, and you just get it, the top portion of it, reconstituted, and just use that. That's fine. You want to wring out a lot of the, or I don't know, just wipe out, whatever you call it, a lot of that ink out of there so you don't get this big splatter, or big drop of paint on your scene when doing it. You don't do it directly over it. You have it kind of off to the side, and you splatter onto it like that, okay? So you don't get this. If it does drip, it's not going to go right onto your scene. Okay, let's see. Okay, I'll just keep this right side up for you guys to see. Okay. Kind of adds to the, I don't know, the craziness. You know, it's like lightning's like illuminating everything in the in the sky, dust, rain, whatever. I think it's just whatever it is. I think it's just a cool texture. You can even do this like in, I don't know, high noon on a summer day or something like that, and we can just call it I don't know, whatever, pollen. Not great for those with allergies, but from a visual standpoint, having that kind of extra texture in there is really fun to do. It just kind of adds this extra layer, and I don't know. It's kind of an exciting um, surface, and I think it kind of pushes back my application of black in there, which can be a little bit, I don't know, goopy or something like that. It almost looks like tar or something like that. Oil, which I guess makes sense. It's, you know, pigment inks are oil-based inks, right? Okay, so let's take a look here and see. Yeah, see that? All that white. I don't know. I might have overdid it a little bit, but it sure was fun overdoing it. But there we have it right there. Okay, so anyways, pretty easy scene to do. Like I said, I have a lot more, you know, ink to fill in because this is a fairly large card. You know, quarter size is going to be something like, oops, I just touched that. Huh. Oh yeah, it did get on my finger. I can't really see it too much though. I guess I gave it a decent slathering, but I don't know. It seems like it's setting up fairly quickly. But there you have it there. You know, lightning storm over the lake, storm over the lake, and you have these little rainbow types of effects like this. It really does make it a very interactive card if you haven't seen these ones before. Look at that, it changes like that. It's like a lava lamp, isn't it? Without having, you know, needing any kind of electricity or anything like that. So, I don't know, it just makes it really fun stuff. And like I said, I think would look great with you know, silver foil, gold, star dreams and stuff like that. You'd have that reflective quality. It's not going to be multicolored like that, probably, unless it's a holographic type of surface. But nevertheless, I think really fun to do and look at. Okay, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. If you have any comments, leave them in the comment section, or have any questions and all. Thanks as always for tuning into the channel.